Welcome. It's good to have you here in the Presence community. I invite you to just take a moment and really arrive in this space with us. This is a calm, upright, and human space, a place that's really dedicated to practice, not performance. Today we're going to be exploring a really critical piece of our inner architecture, what we call the internal compass.
I want to start right here with this foundational principle. Just let that land for a moment. This idea, it's really the bedrock for our entire exploration today. Think of it as a radical permission slip that shifts our whole orientation away from needing external proof and toward our own internal authority. So here's the path we'll take together. We're going to start by identifying a really common pattern of miscalibration. Then we'll move to the key insight that actually allows us to recalibrate. From there, we'll build a practical architecture for safety. And finally, we'll look at the vital work of restoring self-trust once we're on the other side.
All right, let's begin by diagnosing a state of miscalibration, a pattern I think many of us know intimately. We call it the external authorization loop. This is that state of constantly seeking legitimacy, permission, and a sense of safety from sources outside of ourselves. You know, this slide really maps out the core internal conflict, that external authorization loop. It's driven by what our framework calls the small self. This is that part of us, often shaped by our past experiences, whose main job is just to scan for threats and ask, am I safe? It's constantly referencing the outside world. But the true self, it operates from a place of internal authority. It scans for integrity and asks a totally different question. Am I aligned?
So how do you even know when your compass is miscalibrated? Well, these symptoms, they aren't character flaws. They are data. Your body gives you signals. You might notice you feel physically braced in a certain environment, or that you're constantly monitoring your own words and actions. Maybe you've noticed that when you try to get clarity, things only get more confusing. Belonging starts to feel like it's contingent on your performance, and, a fear of being honest just kind of settles in. This isn't you being weak, it's your system telling you about the environment.
Okay, so this brings us to the pivotal reframe, the point of recalibration. It's a principle centered on the sufficiency of discomfort, and it's the absolute key to reclaiming our internal authority.
This, right here, is the new standard. You do not need court-admissible evidence of harm. You don't. You don't need some dramatic event or for someone else to validate your experience. Your own internal experience, your discomfort, your confusion, your fear is valid, and it is sufficient data to warrant a change. This shifts the entire burden of proof from the outside world to your own internal sensing.
And this is what we're ultimately working toward. When we can accept our own discomfort as sufficient data, we are building what we call internal authority. It's the capacity to trust what we sense and what we know, to really stand in our own judgment without needing a committee to approve our reality. Okay, so now let's move from principle to practice. Because look, knowing you need to leave is one thing. Knowing how to leave safely is something else entirely. We need an architecture, a structured process for navigating an exit from any environment that requires you to abandon yourself. A safe exit is not a single event. It's a four-phase process. It all begins with stabilizing yourself internally. Then comes the quiet, structural preparation. The exit itself is handled with a real focus on relational safety. And finally, and this is perhaps the most important part, is the phase of recovery. We're going to walk through each of these.
The crucial first phase is stabilization, and it happens privately. Before you say or do anything externally, you stabilize your inner world. You shift from blaming yourself to naming the pattern. You absolutely have to stop oversharing, because in unsafe systems, your honesty can and will be weaponized. And you must detach your identity from the role you play. The core rule here is profound. I do not explain my inner life to people who control my outcomes. This isn't about being secretive, it's about self-protection.
Now for the exit itself. The goal is to be minimal, boring, and safe. These statements, they're designed to give absolutely nothing away. They are intentionally vague. And why is that? Because in controlling environments, clarity invites control. Vagueness protects you. You simply do not owe a detailed explanation that can be debated or used against you.
Just as important is what to avoid. Remember, the goal is a clean departure, not a dramatic confrontation. Naming harm, diagnosing other people's behavior, or trying to make them understand, these actions often pull you right back into the very dynamic you're trying to escape. And crucially, decline those closure conversations.
This principle is paramount. Your nervous system's safety is the priority.
That search for resolution or understanding with the very system you are leaving has to wait. True closure, that's an internal process that can only happen once you are actually in a safe space.
This brings us to our final and, I think, most vital section. The exit is complete, but the work of rebuilding has really just begun. This is the phase where we get to lay a new foundation of self-trust.
After you leave, I want you to expect what we call nervous system fallout. You might feel this surge of guilt or confusion, or even find yourself asking, was it really that bad? This is so critical. This is not proof that you made a mistake. It is the physiological sound of your nervous system recalibrating after being braced for a threat for so long. It's like a withdrawal symptom, not a verdict on your decision.
During this fallout, there will probably be a temptation to explain or defend yourself, especially if you hear that narratives are being spread. The protocol here is silence. Your silence is not weakness. It is a powerful act of containment. It preserves your energy for your own healing, rather than wasting it on a debate you simply cannot win.
Rebuilding self-trust happens through small, tangible practices. It's really about relearning what safety feels like without performance. It's starting to trust your body's subtle signals again, the yes and the no. It's practicing resting just because you need to, not because you've earned it. And it's beginning to consciously choose environments where clarity is welcomed. And then just start to notice the moments when fear isn't present. That absence is powerful data.
If you take just one thing away from our time together today, please let it be this. The act of leaving a system that requires you to abandon yourself is not an act of betrayal or failure. It is a profound act of integrity. It is the restoration of self-trust.
And so I'll leave you with a reflection. Now, this is not a prompt for self-critique, but for capacity building. Just what would a small 10% increase in trust for your own internal authority look like in your life? What might you gently stop doing, and what might you gently begin?
I invite you to bring your reflections, your questions, and your presence into our community dialogue. This is a space for becoming, where we practice these principles with respect and a shared commitment to growth. Thank you so much for your presence today.